6:30, I'd like to call this June 28th City Commission meeting to order. At this point in time, please, if you'd all stand for the invocation by Pastor Hall, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father God, as we come into this place this night, once again, we prepare to do the business of our community. And once again, we ask for a divine intervention on our behalf. For we acknowledge that no matter how much training, no matter how much wisdom and knowledge we have, we can still not see the future and not know fully the impact that our decisions will have. So tonight we ask that you would bless us with guidance and direction, that you would cause us to be sensitive to your voice speaking in the still smallness of our hearts, that we might find your direction for the greatest benefit, for the greatest blessing, with the least amount of harm for our community as we go forward. And Heavenly Father, we will thank you for all that you do on our behalf to make us better servants of our community. In Jesus' lovely name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're doing better. Roll call, Jenny.
Mayor Jameson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones is absent. Commissioner James.
Here.
Commissioner Lavin.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Mayor, there's one change. Would like to table number 3. That's the budget amendment. There was a number of small questions. We look at that as being always positive. We actually have reduced the budget, but to answer those questions would really need Jennifer here, the finance director. And so we'd like to table it till the next meeting.
July 12th.
July 12th, I don't have to advertise or anything.
Right, so we table it to July 12th.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're going to table it with advertising, let's do a motion and set it for July 12th. Motion and second.
Okay.
Do it formally.
I'll make a motion that we table ordinance 2018-07, the budget amendment, till the July 12th meeting.
I second.
And a second. Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none is passed. The agenda has been amended. Do I have an approval for the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the amended agenda. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none is approved. At this point in time, approval of the minutes from June 14th.
I make a motion that the minutes from June 14th be approved as printed.
I'll second that motion.
I've got a first and a second to approve the minutes from June 14th. Any comments? Any public? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Minutes are approved. We have a presentation here. Mr. Walker, if you would take care of it, please.
Happy to do that. Mr. Mayor, this is a proclamation of the state of Florida, City of High Springs. Whereas Honor Guards of America, consisting of former and retired military, police, firefighters, emergency medical services, EMS responders, chiefs, and other agency personnel and their families and communities face an increasingly difficult role as they protect and serve the nation and the public. And whereas the men and women who wear these uniforms understand the dangers of their job, heeding the call to serve and willingly face those risks every day in order to create a nation and a safe nation and safe communities for all Americans. And whereas Honor Guards Day honors the sacrifices made by those who wear the uniform, march and present the colors with honor, stand watch over our fallen in all weather, and comfort those in duress. And whereas the City of High Springs recognizes and appreciates the sacrifices of Honor Guards with their families, and supports their efforts. Now, therefore, our mayor, Scott Jamieson, the mayor of the city of High Springs, hereby proclaims July 1st, 2018 as Honor Guards Day and encourages our citizens to recognize their services and show their appreciation to the honor guards who support our communities. Signed and sealed this 28th day of June 2018 AD, Scott Jamieson, our mayor, and attested by Jenny L. Parham, our city clerk. The appropriate motion is to pass the proclamation as read by its entirety.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Yes, sir.
Any comments? We have a motion.
I make a motion that we accept this proclamation. I think it's a wonderful validation of the people that serve us.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll close it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried none. It passes 4-0. Thanks again, Mr. Walker.
Yes, sir.
At this point in time, we have a presentation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board Chairman, Mr. Ross Ambrose, about the park status of the parks. Mr. Ambrose, it's all yours, sir.
All right. Glad y'all came out just for this presentation. I just want to remind everyone that the Parks Board is established by ordinance, and it's our role to advise the Commission on our recommendations for the facilities and programming that take place in our city. So 3 years ago, we started coming and doing a 5-year plan instead of leaving it up to every year to take a look. But we also, by action of the City Council or Commission, serve as the Tree Board, which also by ordinance is required to make a presentation to you once a year regarding our trees. So we're incorporating that. And in past years, we've done the tree part last. So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to touch on that first this time. It has not changed in 3 years because essentially there has been no action on any of the recommendations. Our function pretty much is to pick a place for 2 trees to be planted during the year. And we again encourage the Commission to have the budget reflect the city's priorities. And, you know, we claim to be a tree city. There are guidelines for that. And pretty much what we do with trees is pick them up when they fall down. And there are other opportunities that would really benefit the community and the trees we have on both public and private spaces. So our recommendations are included in your packet. They're there, and if you have any questions, we would be happy to discuss them with you as part of the presentation today. Was that short enough? You wanted it quick.
However, just recently, Bailey Estates was sold, and the developer was to develop it quickly, and he wanted to cut down all the trees. We forbade that.
Yes, and actually, I will say that the change to the strength that the city has in having a say in what happens with acrylic cutting and some large trees has been a step forward. And Mr. Booth was responsible for the change in that ordinance that allows the city to be able to actually say no and have some teeth behind it. So that's occurred a year ago when that went through. So that's the tree board. Now, as far as parks go, also want to remind you that for the last few years, we've emphasized that we're not talking about just programs for kids. We are talking about a quality of life element that a great deal of research has said influences where people choose to live and what they do. And quite frankly, it's an economic development tool that the Commission has available. And we have facilities that far surpass other communities our size. We still have, I think, more lighted fields than the city of Gainesville for some of our sports. I mean, we have amazing facilities. And we're not just talking about youth sports in terms of what a Parks and Recreation Department could be for the city of High Springs. And historically, we're coming to you early in the budgeting process because typically police and fire get taken care of and utilities get taken care of. And what we've seen, and I've been on the Parks Board for over, I think, 14 years, is you get to the part of the budget where you've got only so much money left and you don't do things. And in the last few budgets, Manager Booth has been very good about getting money there to put our parks back in shape. I mean, we actually closed playgrounds and things that were in bad shape, and roofs on dugouts that had holes and fallen in. And, we've really done a lot where we had deferred maintenance to step things up. So we're here early presenting a 5-year plan so you all can help set the direction and make sure that there are funds to implement that. Mr. Booth has been a supporter. The budget's increased. He's been a great supporter of staff and developing their scope of responsibilities, but he's also very cautious in his budgeting. And if he's going to allocate money from the general fund, he's going to make sure it's well used. And I think he's established a pretty good track record of doing that and how the budget's handled. And we're seeing success with the change in the budget the past few years. The facilities are being used a lot more. They're in better condition. We're continuing to see a stream of grant money from a number of different pockets. The Frozen Foot has continued and more than doubled the number of runners as a 5K event this spring. And revenues have increased. We'll be somewhere probably between $45,000 and $50,000 in revenue that's actually brought in by people using facilities and participating in the programs. So this program, or this department, has the ability to help generate cash to support activities because citizens are using it. This year, the advisory board really feels that the commission needs to help set some direction and encourage Mr. Booth to be a little more bold in the expansion of the budget. And the number one reason for that is the Wild Spaces money. We continue to be a city that puts grant money, whether it's coming from Wild Spaces or the CBG grant, that comes in, and we build facilities and we expand things. But how do you program them and how do you maintain them if you don't have staff to support them? And that's the question. Also, since we didn't, with Wild Spaces money, go ahead with the purchase of the original High Springs, the Lindano property, things that we had planned to do over the next 4 years when the list of projects was submitted for Wild Spaces, they're all being done this year. We're taking 4 years of projects and funding them in the first year. So there's a tremendous amount of project management that's going on and investment in the parks. And to have a parks director and one maintenance worker, the board feels is going to cause an issue. And it's again a situation where we're not supporting that we actually then able to use and maintain those facilities. Now, I was here at the last meeting. I understand there's going to be an addition of a staff member to the Parks Department, but that person is primarily going to be mowing. So it's not really an addition to the resources. So as citizens complain about bathrooms not being open and trash not being picked up on the weekends when the facilities are being used, yeah, because we've got a parks director who's literally working to handle close to $1 million in just this 12 months. And with other monies coming in, who's also supposed to be programming, and the programming's increased, the number of teams are increasing for the sports we offer, and the vision of the plan has included expanding past just youth team sports. We could do a lot more for seniors. We could do a lot more for teens. We could do things on, 3 and 4 day weekends when kids have time off, but we don't do that because we don't have the staff to program those things. And we're also going to be taking over this year programming the old school building. That will come under the parks budget as well. So there's a lot of need. And really, when you look at it, we're recommending that you look at including the mowing position 2.5 to 3. A part-time or full-time programming person to help the director to make sure that we're using our facilities. You've got someone to mow and someone to help our existing maintenance worker. There's just a lot, and our facilities are spread out all around the city. It's not like we've got 1 or 2. Just getting equipment and mowers and resources to those things and handling whether it's a tree that falls down. At our last parks meeting, in one of the parks, a tree fell during the meeting. So that just got added to the list of things that needed to get taken care of. So anyway, we're looking for the commission to ask, and we're looking for Mr. Booth to consider finding ways to put the general revenue dollars behind all the grant money that's coming in so that we can be responsible in how that money is invested and spent for the city. And the other thing that the board is recommending, and hopefully the commission would support, is that the Parks Board over the next year take on exploring the idea of a facility, a new facility of some sort that can be used for public use here. And one of the immediate needs is we're the only community in the region that doesn't have an indoor recreation facility of any kind. We use the school, which the middle school maybe have some renovations to their gym, but we've used the churches, we've used Camp Kalakwa, we've used other things, but we don't have a facility. And there might be a need for a number of needs in the community that could be addressed with potentially a new building. So maybe in this next year, take a look at what those needs are and how they might be satisfied. And so that's part of our recommendation too. So you had in your packet the actual or the recommendation for year 1 through 5. Many of the things are being rolled forward. A number of things have been taken care of since last year. Robert's made great progress, and he's doing a tremendous job, and so is the maintenance worker, Dave Sutton. And it's showing. It's showing in the usage. It's showing in how the parks look, and things people are asking to do in the community. That is what I have to present. And I'm open to questions, and Robert is here too.
I will say I've noticed the maintenance has gone up considerably. I know that Robert and Dave have spent a lot of time inspecting the playground, making sure that they're repaired, and I'm really happy to see that because it's a liability issue for us if we don't maintain. So maintenance is really critical, and I also am in favor of an employee on the weekends to be there because we are staffed Monday through Thursday. I am astonished at what 2 people have done in our parks. I'm astonished what they've been able to accomplish because I know that there's a lot more than just they're not sitting in an office all day. So thank you. I really appreciate your breakdown here and what your board is doing.
You're welcome, and we definitely appreciate all that Robert and Dave do. So,
What's the last basis fund? Is there a sunset date on that?
7 years.
7 years. So what year are we in now?
Year 1.
You're in year 1. The grant money, the matching grant from year 1 needs to be spent by April of this next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the CDB grant, this week, they determined that we need to put $70,000 into that park.
Walter Howard.
Walter Howard Park. So Robert will be buying some more, I guess, 1 through 4 playground, because the other playground there is really for 6 through 12. So in the Sand Valley, because there was one there, so we took it up, so we're going to put it back.
It'll get used. It'll get used. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, Ross.
At this point in time, we'll go into unfinished business. Item number 1, consider ordinance 2018-02. Mr. Walker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the future land use plan map of the City of High Springs Comprehensive Plan as amended, relating to an amendment of more than 10 acres of land pursuant to an application CPA-AUZ 17-000003 by the property owner of said acreage under the amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3248 of the Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from county rural/agriculture less than or equal to 5 dwelling units per acre to city residential suburban 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, providing severability, providing for repeal of all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2018-02 upon its reading by title only.
At this point in time, I'm open discussion, public hearing. Seeing none, close it. Any comments from the commission? This is the second reading on this. We had it previously.
Yes.
Any discussion or movement on it?
And of course, since it's quasi judicial, you have to say if you've had any ex parte communications or that sort of thing.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2018-02 on the second and final reading.
Second.
I have a first and a second to pass it. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Oh, excuse me, roll call. No, I got it written right here in front of me. Roll call.
Mayor Jacobson?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. At this point in time, we'll go to number 2, an unfinished business. Consider ordinance 2018-03. Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir. This is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended relating to rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z-RG17-000002 by the property owner of said acreage, providing for rezoning from County Agricultural A to City Residential -2 R2 of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2018-03 on its second reading by title only.
At this point in time, I'll open up discussion to the public. Close. Any discussion on the commission or movement?
I will make a motion that ordinance number 2018-3 be approved.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Any other comments? Ginny, roll call.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Lavin?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Mayor James?
Yes. Motion passes 4-0. Item number 3 has been tabled, and that's the adopted budget. At this point in time, we will move on to citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. Just make sure you give us our name and limit the comments to 5 minutes.
Nobody?
Citizens' request is closed, and we go on to new business. Item number 1 is consider resolution 2018-I. Mr. Walker, you're earning your money tonight, sir.
I'll tell you what, and moving along.
There you go.
A resolution increasing and implementing rates for solid waste services for the commercial customers, providing for conflict severability, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution 2018-I as read by title only.
Right, I have a few things to say about this.
Okay.
Over the last 4 or 5 years, we have been absorbing the increase in rates. That it is based on the CPI or the rate of inflation. We find ourselves now with the commercial rates having to subsidize them because we're not bringing in as much money as we're spending. So this is simply to increase it, so we're not losing money. But
Any comments? Questions?
Did they know before this point that this was happening too?
yes,
Notice was sent out.
so far the individual rates, not commercial, but house rates,
Yeah.
have not been affected, even though we have absorbed the additional rate increase by the WCA.
Okay.
But what I see here is that the current commercial rates are covering what our WCA cost is. Is that correct?
Well, not the admin cost.
Okay. And we're going to renegotiate contract in April or something, or before April, right? There's going to
For
be.
next year,
Yes,
that's right.
okay. What is the administrative cost on these? Do you have a breakdown on that?
No, I do not.
Well, I know we've absorbed it. I know in the residential, I know in the
Right.
commercial, we've done the same thing, and there's been some where we've lost some money on it. We've absorbed it, trying not to raise the cost. So,
Okay.
any movement or let it go?
Make a motion that we accept resolution 2018-9.
Second.
We got a first and a second to accept it. Any other comments? Citizens? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Lavin,
No.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Mayor Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1. At this point in time, we move on to number 2, consider resolution 2018-J. Mr. Walker?
Yes, sir. This is a resolution of the City of High Springs, Florida, relating to provision of fire service facilities and programs within the City of High Springs, Florida, establishing the rate of assessment, imposing fire services assessments against assessed properties located within the City of High Springs for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018, approving the assessment roll, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass Resolution 2018-J as read by title only.
I'll turn this over to the fire chief.
Good evening. Fire Chief Bruce Gillingham. So this is an increase to the assessment that's already in place. We've requested a $43 increase over what the current residential rate is of $112. We had a meeting back in the beginning of May, and then we met at the end of May and did the workshop and discussed the assessment and some things we can do with that. Reminder, this is restricted funds that can only go to the fire department. It can't go anywhere else. I do want to apologize for the letter that went out, because I know you guys have had, and ladies have had a lot of phone calls in reference to the letter that went out, but it was a statutory requirement, the way the letter was written, and we had to send it out to notify that we were increasing the assessment. When we explored the options of the assessment in 2007 and adopted it in 2008, we adopted a sliding scale on the assessment on the rates, where we had the leniency to go out and go from $73 to up to $112 within the assessment. We didn't go all the way to the max rate then of $223 when we sent the initial letters out, figuring by the time we got to the $112, which is 10 years later at this point, or 9 years later, that we would go ahead and notice everybody anyhow. So that is what we did. We need to go above $112 to increase staffing levels, as we discussed previously, and that was the statutory requirement, were the letters that were sent out to the property owners, and that is where we're at now. So are there any further questions on this at this point?
I just want to clarify, because I had talked to you, and our residential rate's going up $43, which is like $3.60 a month. Our commercial is going up 1 cent per square foot, and then institutional, which we don't have much of, is going up 3 cents a square foot, and that is what the increase is, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then this increase is to create full-time positions that we need to have so that we can meet statute 69A-62.003, which is a uniform minimum firefighter standards, to have 2 people in, 2 people out when you have to respond to a scene, correct?
Correct. Currently, the 2 seats that are being covered for the additional 2 full-timers that we're looking at adding are filled with part-time positions, and with our conversations and the commission had passed in our conversation last week, those those positions are being filled by full-time firefighters from other departments that are working for us part-time. We are starting to see a trend with the other departments with the retirements and people getting hired in other places that we're not able to keep the full seats with the part-time personnel. So that's where we're at. That's why this is coming. We found a real hole and a real need, especially during Irma, with only 7 of us that are full-time trying to staff during an emergency situation. We saw it during Matthew as well the previous year, and this is something we've been talking about for the last couple of years.
And in that situation, the Irma or the Matthew, those full-time firefighters that are part-time with us have a responsibility to the company that they're full-time with, and they get called in, right?
Correct. They're going to go to their primary employer, which is their primary responsibility.
Okay. So I just, I wanted them to know that this is about creating that staffing that we are required by law to have.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's all I had.
Well, this also, just to make sure people understands that when you do this increase, by going to the full-time, it allows us to pursue the ALS.
Correct.
So I think that we need to understand, we have all full-time, which is, Commissioner Lennon said, we don't right now, so we're having to use subs to comply with the statute where you have 2 in and 2 out, depending on subs. This allows us to have full-time, which then you take the next step, allows us to go from basic life support to advanced life support. And we had so it's almost like a 2-prong when you look at it. It puts us in compliance, but it also allows us to offer this much needed additional medical service. Guy shows up and there's something they can't intubate, they can't give diabetes, they can't have injections, they just have to be there. This allows our guys to do much more. So there's more to it than just the full-time type of deal.
Correct.
It gives us that, which then allows us to take the next step.
Yeah, this allows, at this point in time, instead of coming back next year or after we get this done saying, hey, we need 2 additional people to go with paramedics, we felt as staff that it was just physically responsible for us to say, as we're doing the 1 increase to bring the additional staffing levels up to meet the 2 in, 2 out requirement, now we can look at pursuing the ALS as well and have a very minimal cost instead of coming back saying, hey, we need 6 additional employees to be able to do this.
Right.
So we just felt it was the best bang for the buck, not only for the citizens, but for the city.
Ultimately, down the road, not right away, ultimately having these additional services is going to affect insurance rates for homes because we will be offering a higher level of service.
It will. And we talked about this as well last week. ISO, the insurance office, rates us every 4 years, and they look at staffing levels. Well, with part-time employees, each part-time employee only counts as a third of a person. They don't count as whole people. So we have a whole boatload of part-time people that essentially meet up these 6 people. So where we lose credit is, for instance, training, because they only get a third of the training. They don't count the training as a whole with all 3. We only get a third of it because they get the training at the other department, so we don't get full credit for that. So that changes our ratings as well. And if we run into these situations where they get mandatory for their full-time job, then we run into the situation of we could be reduced staffing when we're putting our citizens at risk as well. So these are necessary steps to be able to maintain those levels, not only for safety of our personnel and our citizens, but to make sure we can keep our ISO rating as low as we've got it now. In 2013, for those who don't know, we were an ISO rating of 6, and we have dropped to a 4. We're borderline maintaining that 4 coming into this next cycle that we're fixing to come into, mainly due to the staffing levels and due to the training aspect of it, because we do lose points there. With this, we can, honestly, I'm reaching a little bit here, but I think we were close enough to a 3 with just increasing the staffing and the way we're going to be doing training that we could see an additional drop. If not, we're going to be right on that cusp of seeing it, and it's just going to be really close.
And that helps the insurance companies rate our area for
on your homes and your commercial businesses.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Any comments from the public or questions? Any other up here? If not,
I will make a motion that ordinance number 2018J be approved.
be resolution. Just make sure it's a resolution, not an ordinance.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure so it goes in as a resolution.
Resolution 2018-J.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, roll call, Jenny.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. James,
Yes?
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Moving on to number 3, consider resolution 2018K. Mr. Walker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is resolution setting the election to fill the city commission seats number 4 and 5 of the city of High Springs, designating the election for the 6th day of November 2018, setting the qualifying period, setting the qualifying fees, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution 2018-K as read by title only.
Comments? So what if we don't approve it?
Go down to 3 commissioners, I suppose.
Then Tallahassee will probably come in.
I think that might happen.
I think we should give the audience the date once we approve it, if we do.
So this is just setting, so I have a motion, we just need a roll call vote right now. I mean, we've got nothing, there's no discussion on it. What's that? Oh,
I will make a motion that resolution 2018K be approved.
And I'll second that.
you would. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call, Jenny.
Mayor Jamison,
Yeah.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner Lyman,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Yes.
Come on.
Moving on, number 4. Yes, ma'am.
Seat 4,
You couldn't figure that out?
seat 4 and 5.
These two.
Seats 4 and 5.
The 2 gentlemen on the dais.
Number 4, consider approval of agreement between High Springs Fire Department and the University of Florida Board of Trustees for an EMS medical director services. Gillingham.
Sir, welcome back. All right, so this is the second part of what we were just talking about. So this is the contract with Shands, and yes, I know it says like March, but that's when they sent us the contract. And Attorney Walker and I believe Courtney also have reviewed the contract, and it's just standard boilerplate contract for medical direction through Shands. This is the medical direction that the county uses. As you heard Dr. Jones on the 31st, this will allow seamless care between the 2 agencies. Policies will be the same. Once the contract's approved, we can change the date, send it over to their legal. They'll sign it, we'll sign it, we'll pay it, and we'll get it rolling. But we have to have medical direction in place to be able to submit for our ALS license with the state. So what will happen is this, if y'all so move tonight to approve this, we'll get it over to them. They'll get a signed copy, we'll get a signed copy, we'll get the invoice, we'll pay for it. We'll go to the next step after that is I have to petition to get on the county agenda or request to get on the county agenda for them to sign off on the certificate of need. Once I get the signature from them, along with the medical direction contract, our insurance policy, a wonderful packet of stuff, I mail it to Tallahassee, and then we'll have a tentative start date for the ALS, which we're going to set for January 1st. If we're ready to go sooner, we just call them and say, hey, we're ready to go sooner, but it's going to take anywhere from 30 to 90 days for them to review and get back, because we got to send them all our policies and things along those lines. So there is some timing with this, is why this is coming a little bit early before the new budget.
I have a question I probably should have asked the last
No.
thing. So this assessment to increase staffing, when does that hit the tax roll? At the tax bill that comes out in November?
This will be effective in October 1.
Okay. And so you will have the money in your budget to have those people on staff to do this piece by January or whatever
Yeah,
that's.
as it'll be in the new budget. We'll start collecting the revenue as the taxes start coming in. Historically, we start seeing it roll in around the end of November, beginning of December, and we get payments on it throughout the year.
But your intention is to hire those positions like the October 1 budget year?
Yes, ma'am. Intentions are, if this gets approved tonight, we get everything together, I can get on the agenda in August. I'd like to advertise in August That'll give time to review applications, go through staff, go through the interview process, what testing we need to do, and then bring them on board in October and get them through the medical clearance process through our medical director, get them up and going. County has agreed anybody that needs remediation through the process can ride on the county medic units and with one of their preceptors and run through any remediation needed to get through the policies and procedures. And then that's the goal by January 1 to have everybody up to snuff, cleared, the doc signs off on them, and we're off and running.
Okay, thank you.
And there's also a DEA license for narcotics that we have to apply for. That's the other reason this is coming early, because that's going to take almost 6 months to get by the time it's said and done.
Any other comments?
Okay.
I think just what Commissioner Lady said, this is that second piece that I was speaking about earlier, by getting the full-time people. And then you have to operate underneath
Underneath a doctor.
So this is the reason for the contract. In order to have the ALS, you have to operate underneath this doctor.
Correct. We're operating, all of our paramedics, just like everywhere else in the state, operate under a doctor's license, and that's Shanzit UF provides it for this area. So we're using essentially the county contract at the rate. This is a 3-year contract, so we'll be coming, of course, into 2 years we'll be coming back. It may be more, it may be the same. So it's based off of the amount of calls we run.
Okay.
And just to clarify for the public, we're not transporting people to the hospital. You're doing ALS on site, and then transport will come from the county.
Absolutely correct. And the thought behind that is to get the advanced life support there early. Our standard response time within the city limits is less than 4 minutes. Our standard response time out in our county area is less than 8 minutes. And as you heard from the county, we're looking at 20 minutes on a transport. So we'll be able to get the care there sooner.
Have any motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement between the High Springs Fire Department and the University of Florida Board of Trustees for EMS Medical Director Services.
And I will second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Bruce, thank you. He's gone. Oh, no, you're not. Thank you. This has been a long time coming, and it's going to benefit the citizens greatly. Thank you.
Tremendously. Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
so.
ma'am.
I think
I
it's a
don't-
very good move.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion on future fire assessment roles.
I placed that on the agenda. I wanted a discussion between myself and the council. In 2007, the council established fire assessment. You can turn around.
I was stretching.
At that time, the council determined that they didn't want to impose the assessment on any churches. But I think since there has been a lot of outbuildings, there's been hotels built on some of these church facilities that aren't being charged. And I wanted to know what the council's thought on this was. Also, there are different ways of doing the fire assessment. We may want to change that. There is the per foot, there's the assessed value, there's another one.
The traditional method that we use now.
What we do. We just charge everybody the same. And so I kind of open it up what the council is thinking.
So, give a little history real quick, because I was intern chief at the time. In 2007, we decided to go with the traditional method. The square footage method was coming into play. The assessed value was coming into play on residential structures. We decided to go the safer route across the board because the flat rate method for residential and the way we're billing now for the assessment was the tried and true. There was the case law. There was a lot. It stood up in court the test of time. Now, since then, the square footage was fairly new at the time, and the assessed value was fairly new at the time. Those have been tried and true, and they've stood the test of time at this point. So there are some different methods we can look at. When we looked at it in 2000, we looked at it 5, maybe 6 years ago. There really wasn't much of a change across the board on any of it. just we weren't seeing the growth. We really weren't seeing the things we've seen now. There was some discussion to exempt the sanctuaries and get the auxiliary structures of church properties. There was some discussion about exempting it all. There was some discussion about exempting schools. So there's some exemptions that were made in motions that probably need to be reviewed now to see if it's what fits at this point in time. But that's a decision for the commission to make and what the flavor is. Staff recommendation is if we're going to explore that portion of it, maybe we should look at putting a whole new assessment, not a whole new assessment, but look at revisiting the assessment, getting with GSG, redoing our study, and see where we're at. So that's where I'm at with that.
I was someone who asked Bruce and Mr. Booth about the ad valorem exempt properties because, I've been to training recently and, it is a user fee. It is not a tax, and I know they're exempt from taxes, but we do have some unique situations with large parcels of ad valorem exempt that we do provide services to, and we definitely will go in there when they need us. So I feel like we need to look at that, and Chief explained to me that, sanctuaries, there's only people there on Sunday. That makes total sense to me. We support our schools and our children. That makes total sense to me. But, there's some organizations that have houses affiliated with their churches where people live, or other buildings that are in use a lot that we provide services to. So I personally feel we should look at that and try to figure out an equitable way to have a user fee, because it is a user fee. We don't exempt them from paying water or sewer, and revisit that. And if we're going to do that, the general services group that the chief uses can look at that, but also recalculate the different ways that they can do this assessment citywide to see what's going to be fair and equitable for everybody.
I will say this, with Washington Homes, we already had doing assessments on those.
Mm-hmm. I believe the houses are. I've looked at some of the homes on the sites, and some of the issues when I was going through it is there's some that are DBAs under a lot of different names. If that makes any sense. I'm not going to single anybody out in a commission meeting, but there are a couple organizations that run DBAs under 2 or 3 different names because they are doing business as, and they are 501s under those organizations because they do have different aspects within there. So they are a little hard to find in tax roll. I know there's some concerns with some properties missing, and until I get the certified tax roll in August, I don't know. I got to go back and look at those properties because they're on the list. But we found the commission meeting, I believe, where do we have the exact wording on what was exempt in that commission meeting? Do we remember? I know it was sanctuaries, and I think it was schools as well, because we at the time the school board wasn't paying any assessment, and we didn't feel, with us being one of the only municipalities with Newberry at the time charging the assessment, that we could go with school board. I don't even know, is the school board paying with Alachua County's fee at this point? Do we know? So, but by doing that, for instance, the First Christian Academy, when we exempted a school, that became exempt because it was a school as well. So those are some of the things that can be looked at. But I mean, that's up to the commission. I don't have an opinion either way on how we need to go about doing that. My suggestion would be let's go ahead and get with GSG, get a quote for what it would cost to look at redoing our assessment next year. We need to go ahead and reevaluate it anyhow. We should do it every 4 to 5 years regardless, just to make sure. And that's going to be my recommendation to look at. And you guys can go back and forth on how we want to go with the churches.
Actual numbers, because right now we're just in the discussion phase.
Okay.
I mean, because if you even made a decision tonight and said you wanted to just arbitrarily, the commission decided tonight we want to do the sanctuaries, we can't do it until next year. I mean, it wouldn't even go into effect this year. So I think it's something that we should put on our radar to look at, not just that portion, but the assessment itself, and come back in October and work through this problem for next year to come in. And we may come back and say, no, we like it the way it is.
So you can come back to us and tell us what the charge would be from general services to do this evaluation for us.
Yeah, I can redo a request for services for a reeval of our assessment, and they'll come in and we'll run through all the call data again. We'll run through all the properties again. We're already running through the properties anyhow, so it's not going to be what it was the initial cost-wise. Last time we did it, it was double our annual maintenance fee, so it'll probably be about $7,500 if I had to guess, on top of our maintenance fee of what we pay now. That's pure guess. I haven't even talked to them at this point. And let them come in and we can talk to different methodologies. We can bring them in October, November, whenever we want to do this, and we can have the experts come in and explain all the different methodologies and how we want to, different ways, and we can look at it and we can look at our numbers and say, this works for us or this doesn't work for us.
Well, I think it ought to be discussed. I think, in general, I think most things within government at some point in time, you need to periodically, assess them to see if what you're doing is right or not. You just don't sit there and say, well, we've done it this way for 50 years and we'll go. So I think just in general, if we haven't done it, I think it's the process. For me, obviously, you sit here, I would want more clarification on it, because I think this is, when it says all buildings, I would think you're looking at nonprofit. I don't think you're just simply looking at churches. I think you're looking at a broader scheme. I would want that more delineated and clarified, so when you came back in, you know exactly what is this referring to. There's no discussion. I'm just putting out. I would want more, and then I would want it proposed. I mean, I would come back and sit there when you did it. What would it be if you were going to do this? Examples of other places where they maybe have done this, so we're not just sort of casting in the wind and type of thing.
Well, and that was part of the original discussion, and I'm really digging back in the brain pan, and maybe Commissioner Williams can remind me. We were specific on the sanctuary portion because we didn't want to get into the 501 argument. Well, I'm a nonprofit here versus a nonprofit here. That was why we didn't use the wording of nonprofit. We really just looked at the sanctuaries and a couple things because it was within our purview at the time to be able to exempt those properties. I can tell you we got 3 different methodologies in the county right now. Us and Newberry are on traditional. Alachua County is on a sliding scale based off of assessed value of homes for the residential portion, and Newberry or City of Gainesville is on the square footage. So all 3 are being done within the county one way or another.
Do you know?
Alachua County is exempting sanctuaries.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Just sanctuaries, not all nonprofits.
And I think Gainesville's doing the same thing. We kind of set the bar with that, and I'm pretty sure I think Newberry's doing the same thing as well at this point. Not 100% sure on Newberry. I can find that one out, but I know for a fact Alachua County is, because they came back and looked at our stuff pretty hot and heavy as they were talking about the churches.
Well, I mean, I guess I would suggest, if the agreement is, I think you need to come back. I think we need to look at the process, and within that process, the discussion then would be to expand it, keep it the same, or whatever, but we'd have a formal discussion on it. Mm-hmm. We haven't had it since I've been here, and I've been here too long. But we haven't, so I mean, I don't know what the process is, but it seems like this is something you would want to look at. You may sit there and say, keep it status quo, this is good.
And that's what happened with the last assessment. We got part of the way through the study and started it, and there was no change. It was like, okay, it's not even worth doing. That GSG stopped. We stopped. Everything just kind of stopped because there was really no change in services within the fire department. There wasn't a change in call demand at the time, and we really weren't growing because when Amendment 1 passed in 2006, 2007 is kind of when the fire assessment really came into play, because we were looking at funding sources, because we lost that money in the double homestead exemptions on the ad valorem side, and it really became self-preservation for us within the department. And it helped with other city departments as well. And the hit with that didn't hurt quite as bad. It stung, but it didn't cripple us to the level it could have. So there's been some changes. So there may be some different things. And we have hardship exemptions in there still. Right. I mean, none of that's going to change unless we want to change that. Right. It's under statutory requirements. We can exempt these things if we see them fit.
Okay. Any suggestions?
I think I would like to see you bring it back to us in October. Let's get through this budget year. You've got a lot of work to do here with getting this 6 people hired full-time, getting them trained, getting this paperwork for the ALS. So October, November, if you can come back to us with a discussion and some numbers, and then we can make a decision to move forward with the study. The other thing is in the end of November, we'll know whether the new Amendment 1 is going through. That's going to take another $25,000 homestead, which is going to affect our income. So it might behoove us to wait until after that vote to see where we really are financially.
And what I'll do is, if the commission would like, and with the direction of the city manager, I'll get with GSG. I'll request a quote for services for a reevaluation of our assessment. I'll get it back to the manager. If it's not through the roof and seem astronomical, we'll look at budget numbers. We'll plug it in, and hopefully we'll see it come budget time. You know, if it's through the roof, then we'll have a different discussion with it, and we'll handle it as we do. And then I can get Sandy in here if that's the direction we all decide. Myself and the manager decide to go. We get it back to you guys and get GSG in here, and let's have a workshop and explain all the different methodologies and everything, and then we can be off and running in the reevaluation process. If that works for the commission.
That sounds good to me.
Byron?
And I'm discussing.
Nancy, you okay with that?
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and I really appreciate all the work that you put into all this.
We don't need a vote on that. If you just set it up and the time comes and schedule it, then we'll be good to go.
And just open discussion on this. We just wanted to kind of cover all our bases, have a discussion, and you know, we can get it rolling, and we have plenty of time to work this out. So,
Good enough. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Mr. Walker, City Attorney.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Booth.
I always have a few things, but not too much. Everything is really going well. We're working on the grants. The only exception is that we are having a revolving door with our employees, and we're about to deal with that at the budget. So I'm losing them, and Jenny has stacks of applications and people moving, so she's staying very busy. Recreation Department is making a world-class soccer fields out by the BMX. And I'm seeing movement from teams that are wanting to get themselves, in line. The issue is that there are very few soccer fields that are lighted, and ours are. And during that season, the people like to go 8, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and they can't do it on dark fields. So they would like to use our field. But I'm turning it over strictly to the Recreation Department and the Recreation Board to figure that out. We're not going to get involved in who goes where or when.
Okay.
It gets real messy. And so we've been working on the budget, and I think we're ready to present it. Everything else as well.
When will that be?
That will be July 26th.
July 26th.
So far, this budget's going really well. We're, as you'll see with the budget amendment, we're a lot of the things we were going to buy next year, we're going to buy this year.
Right.
So, and we don't have the $100 and some thousand we paid for employees that have recently retired.
Anything else? Nancy?
I saw a report by the school board about their priority list if they get the sales tax increase for facilities. And our High Springs Community School gym is on there for a floor and AC. And I'm wondering if we, as a city commission, need to reach out to the school board to try to get that on a high priority list, because I think 30 years or so we've been trying to get this done. And I know a lot of that's contingent on whether or not the tax gets approved through referendum, but I really would like to see us be proactive in getting over there and talking to school board or whomever to let them know what a high priority is to us as a city. Okay, and I'd be willing to do that, or, you know, find out whom we need to reach out to. I'm sure Scott knows everyone.
Yeah, it's just,
So,
Mr. Walker, on something like that, would it be appropriate, something like that, to craft a letter from you to basically state the urgency or the concern that the school board would look at the importance of that and craft a letter on that one here, and then we could sign it, we could do it, and then we could send it. I would simply say here that any of the commissioners have the ability to call and make an appointment to speak to the superintendent.
right, but I think we need to do it collectively. And there are some other items on our list in High Springs that are probably just as important, but not as important, like remodeling a building. I just know that the lack of AC in that gym, you know, it's pretty brutal year-round, and we use that in our recreation department. And so if we could just put a statement out there, I'd really
I
appreciate
mean, I don't have
it.
a problem with it, but, you know, this is me being my sarcastic self. We didn't have air conditioning when we played.
I know. So, yeah, I grew up without air conditioning too.
Sorry, folks, but I just.
And
you know.
we played basketball in that gym, and I was right there with you.
Okay. All right, would you all, I mean, is this something you all would be, do we need this, any discussion? Are you okay with drafting a letter just to say that, you know,
I don't
please
see why
consider
not.
and give it
At least
priority
they'll
type
know
of
that
deal?
we're
Byron,
interested.
Byron, you okay with that?
Yes.
You could just craft something simple to state that, you know, this is an important product for us, our kids, and, you know, safety issue and so forth, and bring it back to us.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walker, I can forward you a copy of that thing I printed off of that they had posted. I'll forward that to your office so you have it, okay?
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
That answer.
That's it. Thank
Gloria?
you.
I've already bent Mr. Bruce ear enough about my issue.
You can still hear? Okay. No, I said you could still hear, obviously.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay. Byron?
Let's go, let's put that to the Civic Center.
Yes.
I don't know what you want to call those little, if you roll up to and it's supposed to stop your car, you want to roll into
Yeah,
the
they've
building.
been moved.
Yes.
We're putting them back.
Yeah. So, and we possibly can put those, we call those stakes in there, so.
Yeah, we'll
Rebar.
rebar. Yeah.
Kids pushing them up the road.
Yeah, or cars getting their bumpers on there and they move them.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility too. Yeah. And the second is for Jenny. Please put a battery in that clock back there.
Byron's thinking, we aren't even supposed to be here yet.
That's right.
We're ahead of time.
That's it.
I don't have anything. I appreciate anything. Ross said there again, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate Bruce on the fire department, and I appreciate the citizens for being here. It's nice to see you all here and participating, even if just by your presence. It's better than seeing an empty face. So I thank you all for being here very much. If I don't, a motion to adjourn?
So move.
So moved. Thank you all.